A lot of people say that the next wars are going to be over water, and it looks like a lot of places around the world are facing an extreme drought. Even in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of Oregon wells are drying up. People don't have access to water, and water is the number one thing that humans need to survive. We need water. And so we have articles like this coming out. This is from SHTF plan, which is, you know, stuff hits the fan plan. Shit hits the fan plan. And it says freak weather events and drought are devastating agricultural production all over the globe. Okay, and we have a picture right here of the crumbly earth lacking water. So it says, do you know that Brazil just had snow for the first time in 64 years? It says it hit agricultural production really hard at a very sensitive moment because we know agriculture the world over is being affected drastically, and people are shouting that there's going to be food shortages because of all these agricultural problems. Not only that, apparently governments are having farmers destroy their crops for whatever reason. So everything is being exacerbated by us. And it says Brazil is one of the largest exporters of corn in the world, and it's supposed to be way below production. The fate of the of Arabica bean crop is of far more interest because that is basically for the coffee. And you know how Americans love their coffee. Americans love their drugs. The Western world loves their drugs. So this prices of coffee allegedly are going to raise higher, higher than they already are. I don't drink coffee, but millions and millions of people do. And they actually need it to to cope on a daily basis. So it's basically saying higher coffee prices would affect millions upon millions of Americans on a daily basis, and that is why so many people are freaking out about the fact that coffee prices are really starting to spike. I mean, inflation is going crazy. Food, gas, everything, you name it, lumber, whatever you need, prices are going up. Used cars, housing. So this is just adding to the problem. Arabica coffee bean prices touched a nearly 7-year high earlier this week as the unusual cold weather affected the crop in Brazil, the world's top producer. Unfortunately, they're likely to go even higher in the days ahead. No one really knows the depth of the damage undertaken. Preliminary estimates from the Brazilian government that the frosts alone had affected 150 to 200 hectares, about 11% of the country's total Arabica crop area. And they have an estimated 13% loss of next year's production at the Cerrado region in top coffee growing state, Minas Gerais. The full extent of the damage to Brazil's cornfields is yet to be determined as well. It could be down 17% compared to last year. And a lot of countries depend on Brazil for their corn, and a lot of times the corn is used to feed animals, agricultural animals. So total corn production in Brazil is now seen at 85.3 million tons, almost 17% below last year's levels. And they are citing weather issues. Okay, so over in Africa, endless drought is taking a very heavy toll in many areas. At this point, we are being told that crop failure has led to mass hunger in Madagascar, and we are being warned that tens of thousands are on the brink of starvation. So people who take food and water for granted, who just it's always there for us. We never have to worry about it. So we're not prepared for that. If you don't have to worry about things, you're not going to be prepared for it. It's only when you have trouble finding food, when you have trouble getting water, that's when you start to prepare. That's when you figure out that it's not a never-ending supply. There's not a never-ending supply, so you have to work to get it. and it's a necessary item for human beings. And you do not want to be unprepared when it comes to obtaining food and water, because if for some reason, for whatever reason, what we're seeing now, we don't have access to it anymore, you don't want to freak out. The last thing you want to do is panic. When you're drowning, the last thing you want to do is panic. You want to remain calm and you want to know what you have to do. And as it is now, people are so dependent on free water and food and an abundance of both that they're not prepared. So be sure to prepare. You want to panic. The lack of rain in southern Madagascar has led to a crop failure and mass hunger, all said to be driven by climate change. The UN Food Program says more than 1 million people don't have enough food and tens of thousands are on the brink of starvation. Thankfully, we aren't facing starvation here in the United States right now, but there are reports of complete crop failures in certain areas. In this example from Washington State, we have had complete crop failures in Benton and Yakima counties, said Michelle Hennings, Executive Director of Washington Association of Wheat Growers. Hennings said local yields likely won't be as disastrous, and they will vary from farm to farm, depending on if they have received small pockets of rain here and there. But the overall reality is that wheat production will likely be down across the board in the inland Northwest. Conditions have been so dry for so long in some parts of the western half of the country that some communities are actually starting to run out of water. And I talked about that yesterday, about Oregon and the wells drying up. People's wells are drying up. It says this is particularly true in Northern California. In Fort Bragg on the Mendocino coast, only city leaders are rushing to install an emergency desalination system. So they're trying to convert seawater to fresh water by desalination. So they're trying to make this plant. This is in Healdsburg, lawn watering is banned. So people can't even water the lawn. And there's fines of up to $1,000 if you're caught watering your lawn. I mean, people are more worried about looking, their image and showing they have green grass than, eventually running out of water and being able to survive. In Hornbrook, a small town in Siskiyou County, faucets have gone completely dry, and the chairman of the water district is driving 15 miles each way to take showers and wash clothes. We have never seen anything quite like this before. At this point, authorities in California are warning that there are at least 81 water systems that are facing critical water supply. As the state struggles with the worst drought since at least 1977, no one has a complete list of which of the state's 7,500 public water systems are facing the most severe shortages. But in May, officials in the State Water Resources Control Board in Sacramento set out to create one. They called it Public Water Systems Likely to Have Critical Water Supply Issues by the end of August. The end of August, that's less than a month away, guys. It currently includes 81 water systems that serve 132,559 people, from tiny Mammoth Pool Mobile Home Park in the Sierra foothills near Yosemite National Park to well-known Northern California towns like Ukiah, Lake Port Bolinas, Healdsburg, Cloverdale, and Fort Bragg. So it's like it happened in Texas when they flooded. When the whole place was flooded, people didn't have access to water, and people were panicking. People were freaking out. They didn't know what to do. They were just like boiling their water because they thought that was going to clean dirty water out. So we need to learn how to distill water. We need to learn how to distill water without electricity. Because when it comes down to it, we're made up of 85-90% water. So we need it on a daily basis. We can only go without water for 2 to 3 days before we die. It says in northern Mexico, the lack of water is even more serious. The endless drought has resulted in severe lack of vegetation for the cattle to eat, and many of them are literally dropping dead. In the parched hills of southern Sonora, Marco Antonio Gutierrez paced around a clearing, counting the dead. There were 7 rotting carcasses, jutting ribs and shriveled hides, and 2 sun-bleached skulls, 9 cows felled by the heat and hunger. We have seen this sort of thing happen in the poorest parts of Africa, but it isn't supposed to happen in North America. As a result of the endless mega drought, the number of cattle being raised in Sonora has now fallen by almost half. 2 years of extreme drought turned northern Mexico into a boneyard. Between starvation and ranchers forced to prematurely sell or slaughter their livestock, officials say the number of cattle in Sonora has dropped from 1.1 million to 635,000. So almost half of what it once was. Unimaginable loss for the state that is world famous for its high quality cows, where the beef is not just a central part of the diet and economy, but also a tradition that binds families together. So crazy weather is affecting food production around the world. The bottom line is that food production all over the planet is going to be much lower than anticipated, and that has very serious implications for the upcoming year. And he said it's happening. Scientist Scott Hodling told a reporter for OPB as he gestured across Paradise Glacier high up on Mount Rainier in Washington. He was referencing hundreds of thousands of tiny black worms emerging from a vast expanse of white snow. I've been watching Mount Rainier for a long time, and so this definitely got my attention. Are hundreds of thousands of black worms emerging from ice of Mount Rainier because of the unprecedented heat this summer, or is it something else going on? I don't have the answer to that question yet, and I will continue to monitor developments on Mount Rainier very carefully. Our planet is changing in highly unusual ways, and despite all our advanced technology, we are still very vulnerable to extreme weather fluctuations. Hopefully, conditions will revert to normal soon, because if that doesn't happen, global food supplies are just going to get tighter and tighter in the months ahead. So life is prepping. Prepping is life. You need to be prepared for the worst, hope for the best, because it's not if something bad is going to happen, it's when something bad is going to happen. And something bad is starting to happen right now with severe droughts and food shortages coming. So people prepare yourself, learn how to distill water, learn how to find sources of food, and stock up a little, because if you're not prepared, you are going to panic. And the worst thing to do in the beginning of any kind of disaster is to panic, because a lot of other people are going to be panicking, and it's not going to be good. So let me know what you guys think. Are you guys prepared? Do you guys need to prepare? Do you guys think this is just going to get worse? Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.